It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to your Aussie Real Estate Breakfast radio show. Yes, we are talking to all of the property experts around the country because we are not a real estate company. We don't just focus on one suburb, one location or one city. We are across Australia every morning. And the weekend, well, that came and went. New opportunities this week, though, if you missed out on the weekend, which is just the nature of real estate. There are winners and losers every day of the week, so don't worry what happened across this weekend. The hesitation is always interesting, I find, between couples when buying a property. It's always a problem. One will blame the other when they miss out, thinking that they had time to stall and hold out for a better price, or put in these terms and conditions that were just too challenging for the vendor to accept. And then what happens? Someone else swoops in, they clinch the deal, and then the blame game goes on between couples. Actually, sometimes what tends to happen is that leads to that couple overpaying on their next property. Has that happened to you? Well, it's a Monday morning, August the 4th, and talking of couples, what do you make of Pamela Anderson and Liam Neeson? I mean, this is brilliant stuff to watch. Two people that have found themselves falling in love with each other, and if you had given me 10 guesses on what combination of famous couples would be the most surprising reveal in 2025, I would not have got that. I would not have picked it, even if you'd given me 1,000 guesses. But it's playful, it's affectionate. You can see the respect in their eyes that they have for each other. And with every crazy thing that is going on in the world, it makes me, for one, smile and feel really happy for them. And did you see the Titanic moment on the boat? I mean, come on. I'd rather watch Pamela and Liam over Jack and Rose every day of the week. So a wonderful, blossoming, unexpected romance that for me is very magical to watch. And in a world of these pretentious couples posting online photos of these try-hard picture moments of how much they are in love, this is how you do it, authentically, by just being real and not forcing anything upon us. And I'll make a prediction. These two are together for the rest of their lives. What do you think? They probably right now are making property decisions on where they're going to live.
It's your weekday real estate breakfast with news, interviews and predictions every morning on the Real Estate Podcast.
Well, right now, let's catch up with Margaret Lomas. And Margaret, I want to sort of come back to this talking point from last week about the median dwelling, now over 1 million. I made the comment, you go back 5 years ago, probably very, very hard to predict that it would have hit that number.
Well, it's always going to hit that number at some point in the future, and we might be just here a little bit earlier than we thought we would be. But I want people not to panic too much, because when they hear the $1 million median price, they immediately think, now I need $1 million to buy somewhere to live. And that's not true. There are still a significant amount of suburbs in capital cities where you can buy a dwelling for significantly under $1 million. And we need to understand that what might need to change a little bit is your perspective of where you're going to be able to live, especially if you're a first-home buyer, and what kind of a dwelling you're going to be able to live in. But there are plenty of places well under that $1 million, and you don't have to go out to the back of Burke to get them either. And I think we also need to understand that when we talk about median value, remember, we're taking into account the top sales as well as the bottom sales. And when you take a few of those top end sales out of the calculations, we then get a significantly lower number than the $1 million as the true price of a dwelling in Australia today. I think we shouldn't panic so much and understand that there's plenty of places that are still affordable, and they are places that aren't too far out from our CBDs.
I want to pick up on a hot pick right now for first home buyers. We know that you're listening to the podcast. You're always after, where's that area that I can get into? Margaret, you have got a pick for us this morning.
Well, I've got a lot of picks, so let's go very quickly. Inner city suburbs of Melbourne like Essendon, Brunswick and Coburg, you can actually get units there for $570,000 average price, as you can in inner east Brisbane for around $510,000. But if you're after a house at the moment, still Melton, which is right smack bang in the middle of significant infrastructure plans out to the west of Melbourne, median price of a 3-bedroom house, just $489,000. What's not to like about that?
Remember to follow us on any of the podcast platforms so you never miss a real estate podcast. You can follow us on Apple, Spotify and Amazon. Know your property with us.
And right now it is time for another property tip. Recently we were talking to Archie there in Melbourne, and good morning to you, Archie. You've got a property tip for everybody this morning.
I do. We've been asked a few times by vendors if we're able to sell their property off market because other agents are saying that they would. My recommendation to any vendor would be, while the market is so hot, why would you deal exclusively with buyers off market? I mean, there's a reason why buyers and buyers agents love off market opportunities, because they're able to deal with you exclusively. But when you've got plenty of buyers out there looking for property, I don't know why you wouldn't put your property on the market and allow every buyer out there to see it and to bid on your property.
Archie, that is a great point. It's all about eyeballs across your property. The giveaway is in the name itself. Off market, not mass market. So yes, take Archie's advice coming from a professional. That is gold.
Every morning from 6 a.m. across Australia, we deliver you the latest property news, commentary and predictions from Perth to Cairns and from Melbourne to Brisbane, 7 days a week.
Yeah, we're still seeing about 25% of all property purchases in Canberra being without a mortgage. So time and time again, I see an auction scenario where there's a few young couples who have fallen in love with a home and they've got their budget set and they're ready on the day, and then they just come and get blown out of the water by downsizers who have just sold their house for $2 million. They've got cash in the bank and ultimately they don't really care what they pay for that house. Once they set their eyes on it, they'll pay whatever they need to get it. So that creates a really tough scenario as well.
Now, we spoke to Wendy Chamberlain not so long ago, a buyer's agent in Melbourne, and you might be in the situation of right now hanging on to your property price, which is over-ambitious. And I asked Wendy, how much of a problem is that in 2025 with vendors not meeting the market price?
Well, I have a saying that I say to people, it's funny. So when we're working with a first-home buyer, they want the prices to drop. But as soon as you buy a house, you want prices going up. So you're dealing with people that own real estate, the vendors, and obviously they're wanting to get as much money as possible. Unfortunately for them, it depends on the market forces at any given time. If the market is not letting them know that is where the value of the property is, the problem that they're facing, which is why we're sometimes seeing such long times that properties are on the market, is they're not actually being realistic about the prices. Part of the reason why a property may languish on the market for longer is it takes time for the vendor to get their head around the fact that they're not going to get the price, their dream price that they thought they would get. It can take a number of weeks. By the time they understand that and realise, yes, they need to make a price correction, which generally is a price reduction, the buyers that were at that point in time interested in their property have moved on, and they are, in effect, starting their campaign right from the beginning again and having to source and find a whole new set of buyers, because those ones have gone. They've gone and bought something else. That is part of the reason why there is such a delay when there is this disconnect between what the value of the property is and what the vendor thinks it is worth.
Wendy, let's have a look at those investors with poorly maintained apartments who are struggling to find buyers, while those failing to adjust expectations, they really can stall the sales process for months and months and months. So it's a bit of a tricky one for investors at the moment.
It absolutely is, because what we're seeing at the moment is there's a cost of living crisis, and coupled in with that is the cost of materials, trades, and getting any works or renovations done. And many investment properties have not been necessarily maintained to a standard that a buyer is happy just to pay you the money and take the keys and start living there. And that is what we're seeing. So when a property is poorly maintained, the investor, in order to get the price that they're wanting, is going to have to invest money in the property. Now, they may not wish to do that. They may not have the money to do that. They may not have the patience. They just may want to get rid of the property and sell it. But again, where it's not a desirable product to the buyer because it doesn't meet that need, with what we've seen over the past few years with the cost of building and materials, lots of buyers that we work with, and just in the market, what we're seeing as a trend is if a property is turnkey, it's ready to go, it's renovated, those are the ones that always do well. It's the properties that may need a little bit of work, they need a renovation, that when somebody inspects it as a buyer, they take pause and they go, am I prepared to put extra money into this because it's extra time, stress? I don't know if you've ever, Craig, been in a house when it's getting renovated, but there's a lot of dust and you get very sick of it very quickly. It wears thin very, very quickly. So that is a factor for investors when they're looking to sell. If the property is not in a palatable state for the buyers, it's going to be considered to be less desirable. And those are the homes that can take longer to sell.
And that is going to wrap us up on our Monday morning. Whatever you're up to today, have a great Monday. And if you've got a property journey that you would like to share with us, you can do that. Our email address, as always, is myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. Catch you tomorrow.
From first-time home buyers to seasoned investors to breaking property news, discover the stories behind the real estate.
It's always important when, especially in times where there's lack of supply, to just extend your radius just that little bit for obviously more supply options, and two, just for those more affordable options.
Look, if we went back a couple of years when the block did a regional location, which was a mixture of new and relocated homes, yes, they're going to have their challenges of, having to be off-site. They're going to be under a lot more pressure, but they're starting from the ground up with a new build.
I know this firsthand because the Gold Coast market was such a different market. The amount of units that were available and extremely cheap.
I think it was $220,000 from the top of my mind, and it was a 3-bedroom townhouse. It was great value, but back then people thought that was expensive, but a few years later it doubled in price. So it was good to get in the market, and right now it is very hard, especially for first home buyers, to get in the market in the Gold Coast.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.